Today I'm going to show you how I built this coat rack. It's very easy to do, it looks great, so let's go. The first thing I did before I built the coat rack is really figure out where I'm going to put it. I decided to put it on this hallway, and then I marked my layout on the wall, found my center point, and this is going to act as a guide so I can place all my boards, and it really is going to make this job a lot easier. So I suggest that you lay it out on a wall before you build it. So one of the challenges is here at the bottom where the baseboard is. I simply could go ahead and just place my the bottom piece of wood here for the coat rack on top, and then you're going to have one of these things over here where you're going to see this right here. It's gonna, it's gonna have this little odd shape here, or I can simply cut this off. I think what I'm gonna do is cut that off, so then it'll sit flush on top of the baseboard right there. I'm gonna go ahead and remove this top part here of the baseboard. Here we have the wood that I'm going to be using for this project. I will be using some scrap wood that I have as well. But for my vertical or horizontal boards, I'm going to go ahead and use a 3-inch yellow pine board like the one you see here. So I have these pieces, these old pieces of shiplap here. And this is what I'm going to use for the coat rack. Instead of throwing them out, you can see I saved them. So this is going to go in between the vertical pieces of wood that we're going to have on the coat rack. So here I'm removing the top part of my baseboard. So the little molding part, I'm going to remove that. A lot of people leave that on there and they put the first piece of wood on top of that. I don't like the way it looks. I think it looks a lot more professional if you remove the top part of the baseboard and then have a flat edge. So that's what I'm doing here, and it's really easy to do. You don't have to do it, but I think it just looks a little bit better. Spending the extra time to remove the molding part of the baseboard and having yourself a nice straight edge, I think makes a difference. And like I said, it's really not that hard to do. There we have it. This corner, we can just glue that in there. It's not a big deal. We're gonna go ahead and fix that. Unfortunately, there was a nail there. So at this point here, we could either have our starting point as a horizontal piece of wood here, or we can go ahead and just butt up against this and have it vertically. I think what I'm going to do is put a nice piece of horizontal wood there going across, and then start going up from there. That's about 33 inches right there, so that's what I'm going to do. Let's cut this piece, and then we're going to proceed from the bottom up. And you can see I have everything already scored here, everything marked on the wall, so it should be easy to do. This is my center point where I'm going to put a nice piece here in the middle, start with that, and build our way up. If I put this on here, you can see that it's going to stick out a little bit. So, because the baseboard is 1/2 inch, I had to take this and I'm going to go ahead and put it on there. And once that sits on there like so, I can go ahead and put the other piece on top. And it looks pretty good. It's tapered and it'll look pretty decent. On this particular coat rack, I am going to have a piece of wood going down the middle. So a vertical piece of pine going down the middle, and then 2 on each side, as you will see here. The only reason I have one going down the middle is because the scrap wood that I have, the shiplap that I have, they're small pieces. So because these are small pieces of wood, I need a vertical board in order to use those smaller bits of wood that I have, that smaller scrap. So that's the only reason I'm using that vertical board down the middle. So the top part of the coat rack, or the header itself, you want those boards to be wider than the vertical or horizontal boards that you have. What I did was I took some of those 3-inch boards, stacked them together till I had about 8 to 10 inches, and that made my header. Now you can simply go ahead and buy a 10-inch pine and place it as the header instead of stacking them up, but that's what I had and I stacked it up. Again, the whole thing here was to make a coat rack that was practical, but also using the available wood that I have. So here it becomes more apparent why I had to use that vertical board down the middle, and it really came down to the fact that I had smaller pieces of scrap. And if it wasn't for this, normally you would not need that piece down the middle. I think it probably actually looks better without that piece down the middle. So it's up to you. That's the reason I did it. I had to work with what I had. I didn't want to throw away all this wood that's just laying there that you never do anything with. So I really wanted to get some use out of it, and that's what happened. On top of the header, I used a 2-inch piece of pine, and then basically I added some decorative molding, and I'm happy with the results. I think it looks good. I think it adds some character to the coat rack and just makes it stand out a little bit more.
1, 3, 4. Yay. Right there.
Cutting these smaller pieces of wood can be a pain, but you always get happy when you have it right the first time and it looks good. After I puttied all the nail holes, the next thing to do was sand. And there was a lot of sanding going on here. You have to sand the wood to make it nice and perfect, nice and level. And really, any imperfections that you have there, you should just make sure you sand it out, because once you paint it, you will see it if you don't sand it, if you don't take care of it now. I patched any other holes that I saw here, any gaps were patched, and then I basically went ahead and cleaned it and got it ready for primer and paint. The next thing I did was the layout for the actual coat hooks. I laid them out and made sure there was equal distance between each coat hook. And the reason I did it now is if I mess up, I can just simply putty it, sand it, and it won't be a problem. If you do it while things are painted, you might mess up and you're gonna have to touch it up, and it makes it more difficult. Doing it now is the best bet. At this point, the only thing left to do was prime it and paint it. I did give it 2 coats of primer. I sanded between each coat of primer, and then 2 coats of paint, fixed any imperfections, and I went ahead and put the coat hooks back on the header, and that pretty much finished the job. Don't forget, all the products that I used in this video are in the description. And if you are enjoying this video, leave a comment, put a like, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.